Someone sees you make one mistake, one bad day, one decision that did not go the way you. Just like that, in their mind, you become someone different, not someone who made a mistake. Furto. Psychology has a name for what just happened to you. And once you understand it, you will never see judgment, reputation, or first impressions the same way again. Think about someone you know who rubbed you the wrong way the first time you met them. Maybe they said something slightly arrogant. Maybe they seemed distracted or cold. Maybe they just had an energy you did not trust. Now ask yourself honestly, how long did it take you to stop seeing them through that lens? Weeks? Months? Did you ever fully let it go? Most people do not. Because the human mind does not work like a fair courtroom, where evidence is weighed carefully before a verdict is reached. It works more like a courtroom where the verdict comes first, and the evidence is selected afterward. This is the world most people are living in, judging and being judged, not by the full picture of who they are, but by fragments, moments, signals. And the psychological force driving all of it has a name. It is called the effect. Machiavelli spent his life studying power, not as a philosopher lost in idealism, but as a realist who watched human beings make and destroy reputations in the courts of Renaissance. He observed something that most people find uncomfortable to accept. People do not judge others by their intentions. They judge them by appearances, impressions, and the stories those impressions create. Sun Tzu, writing centuries before Machiavelli in ancient China, understood the same truth from a military perspective. He knew that the perception of weakness, one visible crack in a commander's composure, could undo years of established authority. A single wrong signal could shift the entire psychological landscape of conflict. Recover from mistakes and read the judgments others place on you. What you are about to learn is not taught in schools, but it shapes almost every social outcome in your life. The horn effect is the psychological opposite of the halo effect, where the halo effect causes one positive trait to generate a cascade of assumed virtues, attractive, therefore intelligent, therefore trustworthy. The horn effect works in reverse. One negative trait, one bad moment, one unfavorable signal, and the brain begins constructing an entire identity around that single data point. The psychologist Edward Thorndike identified this pattern in his early research on human judgment. He discovered that our evaluations of people are not balanced assessments of their qualities. They are dominated by a single impression, positive or negative, that then colors everything else we see. Imagine a highly competent employee who in one high-pressure meeting loses their composure, raises their voice slightly, appears visibly rattled. From that moment forward, their colleagues do not see a competent person who had a bad day. They see someone who cannot handle pressure, and every future interaction is filtered through that lens. The work they produce will be scrutinized more carefully. Their confidence will be read as overcorrect, as overcorrection. Their quietness will be read as sulking. One in crack. Infinite reinterpretations. The mindset shift. You are not being judged continuously. You are being judged once, and then confirmed repeatedly. That first judgment carries more weight than everything that follows. To understand why the horn effect is so persistent, you need to understand the cognitive engine behind it. Negativity. Other people are not being evaluated on who they are. Research in behavioral psychology on what they project, demonstrate, and so are you. That the human brain processes negative information. The halo effect does not just affect hiring decisions or psychological intensity. It shapes how much people trust information. How much they forgive you, personal flaw. How much grace they extend when you make a mistake. It is an evolutionary inheritance. Studies in behavioral psychology show that attractive or confident individuals receive lighter sentences. Missing an opportunity was merely more favorable evaluations in academic environments. Asymmetric system and faster promotions and bad signals as emergencies, not because of performance, good signals as background, but because of perception. In the ancient world, think about that for a moment. The philosopher in this story quietly destroys
Machiavelli
reputations.
at his most cynical.
One piece of negative gossip spreads faster, embeds deeper, appears strong, and is remembered longer than 10 pieces of genuine praise. One moment of describing perception management outweighs centuries before the concept had a name. One public failure overshadows unshakable calm commands trust, even when the situation is uncertain. The strategic weight of this asymmetry. The perception of control he wrote that the skillful commander avoids the reality enemy a single moment of perceived weakness. The mindset shift, not because trust is not given based on who you are, but because the perception of weakness is given based on what people believe you are. Managing that perception is the original incident. It is emotional intelligence in the court of human judgment. Now consider what happens when the halo effect meets confidence. You are playing not to lose. Specifically, protecting your signal matters the most contagious social signal a human being. Here is where the horn effect moves from psychology. It bypasses the analytical mind to philosophy. When someone assigns you a negative label, people around them unreliable, emotional, difficult, untrustworthy, but there's something behind it. They're not simply describing what they observed. This is why creating a filter through which they will interpret everything you do from that point forward. This is why the loudest voice in the room is often mistaken for the most intelligent one. Confirmation bias. The brain conflates conviction with truth. Robert Greene identified this as one of the core mechanics that confirms it and systematically discounts evidence. Project Confidence so consistent. You arrive late once. Doubt never finds a person who is always late. You give an unclear explanation rarely but with complete certainty. You become the person more psychological weight than a highly intelligent person emotionally once. Who qualifies every statement with hesitation. You become the person who is unstable. It is not about the label arrogance. Is applied in a moment. It is about signal, but it functions that reshapes how every future interaction is does not announce itself. Wrote about this dynamic with characteristic directness. But here's the most interesting part of the halo dislike you. It is not just what it causes other people to do. The depth it is what it reveals about how little of their judgment is actually there. It is an accurate description believe they are choosing of how social cognition evaluating the mindset deciding, but they are largely responding to energy, to appearance, to the invisible architecture of social signals from being placed beneath conscious awareness. Which means that when it is placed, the person who understands the halo effect holds information that others do not know they lack. But here is what most people never consider powerful. The horn effect does not only affect how others judge you. The devil's horn effect, how you judge yourself. If someone creates a negative first impression, someone responds to you with visible disappointment or unquiet withdrawal. The same cognitive mechanism your brain begins to internalize their judgment. The brain assumes incompetence. You start to see yourself through their lens again. You become cautious, hesitant, and self-monitoring in ways that produce exactly the kind of negative assumptions. This is why Machiavelli warns firms their original negative impression. Not because he was shallow, creates a feedback, but because he was deeply realistic. Their judgment about human nature changes your behavior. He understood that most people never move past surface level judgment. They do not have the patience, quietly, the time, beneath the surface of every interaction, tightening the narrative they have already decided. Men judge by their eyes rather than their hands. This is not just a social problem. For everyone can see. It is a psychological but very few, and it is far more common than most people realize. The world responds to the signal before it investigates once the horn effect has taken hold. Protect the signal. Can it be reversed? The final and most powerful application of this understanding is restraint. Most people attempt People who speak too much reveal their instinctive response to negative judgment. They fill silence with noise to explain, silence feels dangerous. Or overperform. But silence, to work harder, correctly, speak louder, is one of the most powerful social tools available. Urgently. When you speak the impression was wrong, people project never meaning onto your silence. Because urgency itself depth is a signal where there may simply be the wrong one. The halo effect fills to correct a perception, and it fills it with what they are already inclined to believe about you based on your overall rather than dismantling it. Sun Tzu understood that the battle won before it begins is won in the mind of the opponent. He observed that a prince who never betrays his thoughts commands the terrain before by becoming anxious and accommodating. The mindset does not regain their trust. Say less. He loses what remains of their respect in your silence. The strategic response Thorndike discovered in 1920, Machiavelli, consistent, Sun Tzu, unhurried recalibration, had already mapped centuries explanation. Demonstration, just without the laboratory, not urgency. The halo effect is not a glitch in human cognition. You do not announce that the narrative is wrong. It is a feature of a mind that evolved to make rapid judgments under pressure. Through behavior so consistent that we now live in a world where rapid the original impression gradually loses its grips. Not battles. And the story others are telling about who understands this. The mindset does not exploit it. You cannot argue someone out of a perception they formed emotionally. They understand that many can only replace it, not slowly. It is the oldest and most underrated form of intelligence. There is one more understanding the halo effect that almost no one things permanently. The horn effect. You stop taking social judgments personally. When it operates on incomplete because you understand they are rarely about you. When someone sees one negative moment in isolation, signal you project without context, without history. Second, without understanding the circumstances that created it, clarity and presence. Their brain fills the gap with assumption, but it's communication, as we have established. Because how you carry yourself speaks to the negative. This means that the less people know about the full reality of other people, because you start asking not who they are, but what signal they are projecting. Sun Tzu called this information why you are responding to it. The commander who controls what the enemy sees, controls what the enemy believes. That quiet shift is where real psychological power determines how they act. Most people move through life believing they see people clearly. The person who understands that incomplete information breeds negative assumptions. Learns projection shaped by the brain's need for narrative coherence, but by managing the halo effect is not just a cognitive in moments of weakness. It is a reminder that human beings are profoundly influenced by perception. Do not offer the incomplete and that the gap between who you allows others to complete it incorrectly is where much of life restraint is not deception. It is Machiavelli understood about what information Sun Tzu built strategy around it. Serves the truth. Robert Greene spent decades mapping the mindset, and now you see it silence in the right moment, which means you have a choice available to very few people. It is protection. What makes the horn effect so philosophically significant is what it reveals about to how others the nature appear. Of judgment itself. One aware, we live in a world that insists it values or you can become fairness, a student of nuance, perception, calm, the benefit of the doubt. Deliberate. The architecture of human cognition is not the greatest for fairness. Is the power to make others see what you want them to see. For pattern recognition, without them for narrative coherence, they are looking over accurate complexity. If this idea shifted Machiavelli did not believe human behavior people evil, subscribed for more psychological and philosophical and he argued that the wise person that does not rail against this never encounter and drop one word, study it, understand it below, and learn to move within it with intelligence rather than naivety. That word is perception. Sun Tzu made the same argument from a different angle. More than Mo. The battlefield, like the social world, does not reward the righteous. It rewards the perceptive. And Robert Greene synthesized both perspectives into a single uncomfortable truth. Most people are not responding to who you are. They are responding to the story they have decided to tell about you. Your power lies in understanding that the story can be influenced, but only by those who know it is being written. Understanding the horn effect changes three things immediately. First, you stop reacting to negative judgments with urgency because you understand that urgency accelerates the problem rather than solving it. Composure becomes your primary tool. Second, you become more deliberate about first impressions, not because you are performing, but because you understand the disproportionate weight a single moment carries in the architecture of how others see you. Third, you become more compassionate and more accurate in your judgment of others. Because you recognize that the negative label you placed on someone may have been constructed from a fragment, not a full picture, you start to see the horn effect operating in your own mind, and that awareness alone makes you a sharper, fairer, more psychologically sophisticated observer of human behavior. Observation replaces reactionary. Awareness replaces assumption. And that shift is where genuine psychological power begins. Most people will go their entire lives never understanding why certain reputations stick, why certain mistakes follow people, why first impressions seem impossible to reverse. They will blame bad luck, unfairness, other people's irrationality. But the answer was never mysterious. It was psychological. The horn effect is not a moral failing in the people who judge. It is a feature of a mind designed to protect itself, a mind that treats negative signals as permanent warnings because in the ancient world, ignoring a warning could cost you everything. In the modern world, that same mechanism costs people opportunities, relationships, and years of unnecessary struggle. Not because they are bad people, but because they did not understand the rules of the social world they were playing in. Now you understand them, and understanding a force is the first step toward no longer being controlled by it. As Machiavelli wrote, the first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. But perhaps more quietly and more personally, the first method for reclaiming your own narrative is to understand how it was taken from you. One moment, one signal, one impression. It was never the whole truth. But it was the story someone decided to tell. The question now is, who is writing yours? If this video shifted the way you see judgment, reputation, and human perception, subscribe for more psychological and philosophical insights that most people are never shown.